This is just a short video to introduce TinkerCAD and using its Circuits app to create an Arduino emulator that has an LED blinking on and off. So I'm going to click sign in. I'm at tinkercad.com, sign in with a Google account. And then I'm going to go to the Circuits app and create a new circuit. And then I'm going to go ahead and name this project. Whenever you create a new project in TinkerCAD, it gives it a random name. But I'll call this Arduino Emulator LED Blinking. And then the significance of naming is then I'll be able to get back to it later if I need to. And then I'm going to go over here to the components and choose Arduino. And then I'm going to pull in a blink breadboard and play with that for this introduction. There's also others. There's already a blinking LED over here with a resistor. You could click on that and look through it. But I'm just going to start with a breadboard. So on this breadboard it has a power cable that's not plugged in until you start the simulation. And then there's positive and negative running to the breadboard. So these outer rows on the breadboard have positive and negative there. We're not going to use that in this project, but that's what these random wires are coming off. They're supplying just some rails on the breadboard that you could tap into. And then since I'm going to be trying to make an LED blink on and off, I'm going to go back to basic components, bring in a resistor and an LED, and then I'll play with those in a second. So let's look at the code. Click code up here and then text. And TinkerCAD already has some default code thrown in here. They have within the setup function just letting the code know that pin 13 is going to be an output. Here's pin 13 on the board. And then within the loop function, they're basically turning on pin 13 and then delaying for 1 second, and then turning off pin 13 and delaying for 1 second. But notice there's nothing plugged into pin 13 currently. If I run this code real quick, start simulation, you'll see that this little LED on the board is lighting up. So it turns out that internally on the Arduino Uno, this LED is already connected to pin 13. So without doing anything, I can already see that the code is working. So the code is turning on and off for 1 second. Then I could go and play with that LED that I'm going to put externally connected to the board. So stop simulation, minimize that code, and then what I want to do is take the 5-volt drop that code is supplying on pin 13 and throw it onto the breadboard. And then from that, I'm going to create a series circuit through this resistor. The resistor right now came in as a default 1 kilo ohm. I'm going to change that into a 330 ohm resistor. On the simulator, the resistance really isn't significant. It'll work either way. But in real life, if you didn't put a resistor in line with the LED, you could burn up the LED. So you could play with that resistance though and see the light become brighter and dimmer depending on the resistance. And then the LED is a diode, so it has polarity. The direction that the power is running through it matters. It won't light up if it's connected backwards. So I'm basically going from the positive, from pin 13, through the resistor, through the anode of the LED, and then from the cathode, I want to bridge that back to the ground. So these little lines represent jumper cables in real life. And then I have the components connected in series going from pin 13. It jumps into the breadboard, and then on the breadboard you'll notice these highlight green, these little columns, because internally in this breadboard each of those columns are already connected. They're bridged together. So this is taking on the breadboard this wire to the resistor, and then from the resistor it's breaking into this little column up here that's connected to my LED in the anode. Then the cathode is in this other little column that's connected to a jumper cable back to the ground. So I should be able to just run that same code in the simulation, start simulation, and see the LED blinking on and off. So I think that's just the minimum basics to get started so that you could work through other projects.